I'm Barb Nederpel. I am the NDP candidate for Kamloops North Thompson. I come from a working class background. My dad worked for BC Hydro. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I am in a working class family. I work at Royal Inland Hospital in the respiratory department. My husband is semi-retired from CN, and he has a small business doing contract work for different railroads. And we each have a grown daughter that is out forging their futures out in other communities because they couldn't find work here, unfortunately. And our wish for them is that they can also be working class families. Me specifically, I have always wanted to be a nurse. I grew up, spending a lot of time in hospitals as a child, and I was essentially raised by nurses. My grandmother was a nurse, my uncle was a nurse. So right out of high school, circumstances prevented me from going into that. So at one point though, finally as an adult, I went back and upgraded through adult basic education, and I went back to school and became a nurse. It was when I started working on the front lines that I actually started seeing the deficiencies in the healthcare system, and I wanted to become an advocate. So that's why I got involved in my union, so that I could work on improving the healthcare system. So I did that locally, provincially, and even nationally, and I became the vice president of the Hospital Employees Union. So not only do I have my own experiences in the medical system, but now I have 46,000 healthcare workers that are telling me stories about what it's like for them and the challenges that they have in the medical system. Stories like how a worker had to give a liquid meal replacement, not for therapeutic reasons, but because the facility ran out of food. A senior that has, is only allowed to have 7 to 8 minutes a week to have a bath. But because of shortages of workers, 4 to 5 long-term care homes don't meet basic minimum staffing levels. So they'll go 2, 3, sometimes even 4 weeks without even having a 7-minute bath. And I've never been one of these people that could stand by idly and allow that to happen. So that's what prompted me to run for the NDP, because nothing's going to change until we change this government. So I want to make BC a better place for everyone. It's a big riding, so I couldn't pick just one. In Little Fort, there's a place called the High Five Diner that has the best schnitzel in the interior. There is a place in Clearwater called Teepee Treats. It's a food truck that serves bannock and berries and whipped cream, and it's the funnest little place that you're going to find in that area. But of course, in Kamloops on the North Shore, I have to go with Redbeard. Great beer selection, and an ever-changing, inventive menu, and the people there are absolutely wonderful. I'm going to have to say that Christy Clark and the BC Liberals have made a real mess of things. So I could easily say that in Kamloops, where we have the worst doctor shortage in the province, we could talk about healthcare, or we could talk about education, where schools are overcrowded and students aren't getting the supports that they need. And even the Supreme Court of Canada is telling Christy Clark that she's wrong. But I'm going to have to say that in our region, the #1 priority is going to have to be jobs. And not just any jobs. It's important to clarify that it's good jobs that we're seeking. Down in the Lower Mainland, that's where the job creation is really happening the most. It's not out in the regions. Our region, unemployment is going up. But around the province, it's good paying jobs are being replaced by low wage precarious work. And people just simply aren't able to make ends meet on those wages. Plus, the wages in BC are lower than the national average, and we have the highest cost of living. So if having a job is really the answer, we wouldn't have the highest rate of poverty in the country that we have. So I believe that in Kamloops North Thompson, that we need to have good family supporting jobs. And I believe that the NDP is the party that will work with all stakeholders, including First Nations, to make that happen, but also to make it happen in a sustainable and responsible way. And I believe that British Columbians need to be the first in line for those jobs. I believe that Christy Clark and the BC Liberals are completely out of touch with British Columbians, and you're starting to see that more and more every single day. They're in it for themselves, and they're in it for the top earners of this province. And I'm inspired to work hard with the NDP leader, John Horgan, because he is someone who truly cares about people, and he wants to put people at the top of the agenda. And like John, I'm real. I'm a worker. I'm in the trenches. I, live amongst working people. My friends are working people. I work with working people. And I think that's something that's really been missing for the last 15 years in the legislature. It's just we need people that actually understand what it's like for British Columbians. That is a really hard question. I came down to, it was Thelma and Louise. And then Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I believe that good government will create the conditions where absolutely everyone can succeed, where children are able to get a good, strong start in life, where families get the support that they need, and where seniors get the care that they deserve. But that also includes creating the conditions where good, strong business can flourish, and that includes responsible and sustainable resource development. As we know, 78% of the future job openings are going to require post-secondary education, but there's multiple barriers that are in the way that are preventing people from accessing the very education that they're going to need for those jobs. So I think we're facing a real labor crunch down the line if we don't take action now. And that requires three things, in my opinion. One, we need to address the affordability crisis in post-secondary education. Secondly, I think we need to diversify the post-education system. For example, right now we have a talent deficit in the tech sector, where we lag behind in training engineering and technology graduates. And as a result, technology companies are not able to find the qualified workers and the experienced managers that they are seeking. And that's because the BC Liberals have not been focusing on that area at all, and not investing in these key areas. And as a result, we're missing out on really good opportunities for high-paying tech jobs. Finally, I believe that we should invest more in co-op programs. This provides students with a practical work experience and the link to the working world, and giving them a good, strong start in their working career. Well, if they have kids, we definitely go to McDonald Park. The new water feature park there is absolutely a wonderful new addition to the North Shore. Also, Helmkin Falls is probably one of the most beautiful places, not just in our riding, but in British Columbia. But finally, Sun Peaks at any time of the year is absolutely beautiful. And if they're able-bodied, I would like to take them up during wildflower season to the top of the world, because there's no better view in this province than that. I believe that people should be concerned, because under the BC Liberals, if post-secondary education is becoming increasingly unaffordable and inaccessible. TRU, unfortunately, right out of the gate, is at a disadvantage because the operating grants don't meet the mandate of a full-fledged university. Secondly, the operating grants, per student operating grants, have declined 27% since 2001 under the BC Liberals when adjusted for inflation. BC Liberals also cut adult basic education and English as an additional language, so they downloaded that cost onto students. And as a result, students are now facing, tuition being, doubled, tripled, and even in some areas being almost quadrupled. And living is unaffordable for students. It's hard to find, affordable housing. The minimum wage is really low. The serving wage is even lower. I know of one student that said that he, slept in his car because he didn't want to incur student debt simply to pay for rent. I can totally understand that, because graduates are facing unbelievable amounts of debt in BC, the highest in the country. And what's almost criminal is that we also have the highest interest rates on student debt. And that's just not okay. So in a province with some of the highest income inequality and some of the highest levels of poverty in the country, it's just not right that we're slamming the door on students who want a better education. So the thing is that the NDP platform hasn't yet been released, but I can assure you that the NDP believes in a post-secondary education that is affordable, that's accessible, and that provides people with the practical experience they need to be successful in the workplace. And TRU is absolutely key to the economic success of our region.